Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Frank Mcneil with Talk of the Town, and I'm happy to have with me this afternoon Mr. Mark Ayers, a county board member from County Board District 12, and he's in his second year and running for re-election. And Mark, good afternoon. How are you?
It's great to be here, Frank. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. There's a lot to talk about. It seems that, unfortunately, for the recognition we're getting here in Springfield and Sangamon County, the county board is all of a sudden a focal point. And, I served some years on the county board and we never could make it the focal point. But unfortunately, Sonia Massey has made the county board, the sheriff's office, and the county board chairman a focal point of conversation. I got a call today from Florida. Somebody had seen my podcast about the Sonia Massey, and of course they've seen quite a bit of news on Sonia Massey, and they're asking me what's going on.
Yeah, once again, we're in the spotlight, and not just the spotlight in the state. We're making national headlines, and I think we're even making global headlines, if I'm not mistaken. This has really made the news talk from around the world, and this is the second time, I believe, in our county's recent history where an unarmed individual was murdered at the hands of law enforcement or a first responder. And that first case going back to Earl Moore, just even more recent.
Right.
So, and Ben Crump is retained in that case as well. So, like you said, Frank, we're making history, but not good history here, and hopefully we can fix it going forward.
Okay, Mark, you're on your second year on the county board. You're running for re-election, and you're in District 12. And sort of give me an overview of your issues and what you've been trying to accomplish since you've been on the board.
Yeah, it's going into my second year here, to be 2 years in November, and I kind of a newcomer to politics in terms of running for office, but I've always been a policy wonk and a lobbyist behind the scenes for different causes. And my day job, I'm the director for the Humane Society of the United States. And so animal welfare is something that I really care a lot about. And that was actually one of the things that got me interested in running for county board, was to use my expertise in animal welfare and try to fix our county animal control, which at the time was in utter chaos and disaster. And the former leadership that was there was euthanizing animals and not really trying hard to find them homes. And it just was not a pretty picture. And so I ran to get involved with that. And before I was even elected, they changed leadership because we were running such a strong race on the animal control director. And they replaced the director before I even got elected to the county board. And ever since Jeannie Keenan came in, it's been wonderful. But there's still a lot of work to do, flipping animal control around and making this a no-kill shelter here in Sangamon County. But aside from animal control, I'm big on renewable energy. I've been huge on solar and renewable energy, approving those on the county board and getting those across the finish line. We're working on a huge wind farm that's going to be coming in maybe as early as next year into the county area. Mental health services for those in the county jail. I've been working extremely hard on that. So there's quite a few issues that I've been working on since I got here, and we really hit the ground running in the 2 years since I've been here. And hopefully I can continue that when I win my 4-year term this upcoming November.
Okay. The fact of the matter is, as a former county board member many years ago, I had 2 incidences of death in the county jail, and which were we paid money because of if you want to say negligence on the part of the jail and the jail operation. Since then, there have been Sheila Stock Smith, was at the town hall meeting at the county board where she laid out several other incidences of death at the hands of the county. Unfortunately, this is going to be a major hit to the county. The liability is going to be extreme. The county is self-insured, and I feel as a result, the judgment I'm assuming is going to be so large that you're going to have to go to the taxpayers to pick up some money.
No doubt about it. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of dollars here, and just in some of the normal cases that come before the Civil Liabilities Committee, I fully expect in this case we're looking at a multi-million dollar lawsuit coming our way, and we do not have that type of money, like you said, Frank, and it's going to hit taxpayers hard in the pocketbook, and ultimately that is the responsibility, and it goes back to the failed leadership of Sheriff Campbell.
Well, but now I was reading an article earlier today where Chairman Andy Van Meter was saying he's working with Senator Doris Turner to put together somewhat of a commission to look at things. And that is, now that we know that Sheriff Campbell has said he's going to retire, resign, retire, there's going to be a need for an appointment for a new county sheriff. And I guess it's time for me to step out and say, I think it's time that the county, and I'm asking you as a member of the county board, and I'll be asking others who I know serve on the county board, that this should not be a local member of the sheriff's department, that they need to do a national search and try to find someone outside of the sheriff's department to come in, because there is a unfortunate bad culture in my mind in the sheriff's department, and there needs to be a major culture change. And I preface that on the fact that in viewing a video of two of the sheriff's department's deputies when they dropped off the individual who did the shooting, they said, "We're going to make sure you're okay. We're going to take care of you." I mean, the egregiousness of the act, and I don't think they looked at it from the perspective of the public, is that he's one of the good old boys, and so therefore we're gonna make sure he's okay. But what about the family? What about the dead woman? You know what I'm saying, Sonia Massey? What about her family, her children? And that culture to me permeates that whole department, and I think it needs to be changed.
Everything you said is true. I mean, that's absolutely correct. I've said it before numerous times. The Good Old Boys Club is alive and well in Sangamon County, and I watched that video like you just mentioned of him being arrested and taken into the Menard County Jail, and it's almost like he's getting a spa treatment, that we're going to take care of you, and he has a place to himself, and whatever you need, we got it. And
Right.
it that is not afforded. Any other individual that is arrested does not get treated like that at all. And that is further concerning to me, and all the more reason that Chairman Van Meter should, like you said, put out a search committee, a national search committee, for someone to replace Sheriff Campbell on his way out, because I, like many of others, also do not trust anyone that is Jack's right-hand man to come up through the ranks and be appointed by Andy Van Meter. I'm sorry, I don't trust them. And I don't think the committee is going to trust them either.
Right. I think if he wants to really start trying to recover some good graces with the community, I think he should appoint some members of the community on the search committee and give them an opportunity to interview and be a part of replacing Sheriff Campbell. And that way there is somewhat of a buy-in from the community. But if this is the usual, and I've been around here for a while, if this is the usual county process where they find the guy with the best name recognition that's within the sheriff department, and they appoint him, and they give him a head start on whoever may run against him in the next election.
Yeah, I really don't hold out much hope that Chairman Van Meter will do any of the things that we just said. I have a fear that he's going to appoint someone that he knows well, that's been in that office for many, many years, if not decades, and that we're going to be back here in the same spot all over again. It's like we hear all these lessons, even nationally, from George Floyd and all the other Breonna Taylor and all those other cases, and this is an example where we can learn from this and change the culture.
Right.
But it is my fear that we're gonna be in this position again because they don't want to put in the effort and the work to get someone that is top notch, that can earn the respect of the community. Because I don't trust that the Republican supermajority is going to do that and do that work for the people of this county.
Well, and let me go back to a little bit more. I don't know how much you followed the county board prior to your coming on, but one of the issues with former Sheriff Neil Williamson, who preceded uh, the Marine, I can only think of his name as the Marine. Uh, uh, God, what is his name?
Was
Don't
it
remember
Barr?
his name. Huh? Yeah,
Was
yeah, yeah, Barr. Wes Barr. Wes Barr was the Marine. He did Toys for Tots so many years, and I used to see Wes, and I worked with his wife. But Wes Barr, and but there was an ongoing battle between Neil Williamson and the county board because Neil Williamson budget had been cut several times, and he was saying, "How do you expect me to provide the kind of service that the county requires, and yet still you don't give me enough deputies and the salaries? Let's talk about the salaries of the deputies are the lowest in the county. So you're not getting the first class, the top of the top of the cream of the crop, if you want to say. You're not getting those. You're not going to recruit those kind of people. So that's another aspect of the county because politically, let me just be honest about politically where I stand. The county is scarfing up every program that they can get because they're interested in being a metro government. Let's just be honest about. I'm sure you've heard about the metro government issue, and so they've taken the park district, they've taken the election commission, they've taken the animal control, all under the county's auspices and the health department. And these things cost money just as well, and they don't produce as much money. And so, therefore, the sheriff's department was unfortunately cut in order to make sure it's about jobs. Mark, I think you know that. All of these things created jobs for the county, but somebody had to take a hit. And the thing, Neil Williamson was upset because it was the sheriff's department that was taking a hit.
Yeah, and I think that the issue of money came up recently at the county board meeting that we had earlier in the week, and another individual brought up that they were, they do get paid very little. I think 50 some $1,000 a year starting, and it's no comparison to what the city of Springfield is making, and even an ISP and what they're making. Um, Certainly money is a factor. I mean, absolutely. But I think it's that you don't need to be paid 80, 90, $100,000 to have a good heart and to treat people with respect. And so I think why that's that comment when that individual said it, it was met with some pretty open hostility in the room because it was like, yeah, money is always a factor here, and we don't always attract the best talent with that type of money. But it doesn't mean that you can't be a good person and be a good
Right.
deputy with
No,
that. And I think,
absolutely not. But
yeah,
I'm saying money does attract, it'll attract a better candidate, if I can put
yeah,
it that way. And I'm only saying that because you're going to continue to be mired in the kind of mediocrity, if I can say it that way. And I'm not knocking any deputy sheriff that's on the department because they're there because as a matter of going through a process. But when I look at the process and then I look at the red flags that I saw with this deputy, uh, And the law enforcement officers training board said he was okay. And so I'm going all the way back to them. How could they have approved this guy and giving him a seal of approval? So there's a breakdown in the system all the way up the ladder. And just coming in with the background, with the bouncing from department to department, and having, people may say, if I had 2 DUIs on my record, and I just think that I would be summarily dismissed, and I wouldn't have even gotten to the door, let alone a job. And I don't want to make this racial, because it's not racial. This is about performance. This is about uh, protecting and serving. And was there racial animus? I don't know. I don't know this guy. All I saw was how he reacted to a single woman, and he asked her to go turn off a pot on the stove, and then he gets agitated that she does it, and his response is, "I'll shoot you in the face."
There is so many layers to this onion. I mean, every time you peel something back, something more alarming takes its place. It's like there were so many deficiencies in this process, so many failures along the way that led to the ultimate hiring of that former deputy. Take your pick, from the merit board to a let's be, then coming to the county. A lot of individuals and institutions here look the other way to bring someone like this on, and they've all got to get fixed. And that's been the issue here is every time you think you have a solution, say internally in the sheriff's office, then you have another issue that you need to adopt a resolution on the county board to fix the hiring or the transparency. Then you have to fix the merit board. Then you have to fix a let's be. Well, that's the state bill. That's
Right.
The state electeds have to do that. Then there's the federal stuff with the George Floyd Act. I mean, there's just so many layers to this, and I do feel confident that we're going to get a lot of this fixed. I mean, a lot of wonderful stuff is already underway.
Right.
But I think the question is timing. How long is it going to take?
How long is it going to take? And is somebody else's life in danger as a result of us taking time to fix this? And the other part of this is that, I'm a big proponent of oversight, and I always felt that police department, I fought very hard in the city of Springfield to get police oversight, and fighting with police benevolent, and we slugged it out for 15 years. We got a police oversight, but unfortunately, it's watered down with former officers, and for the community to feel a real sense of they have some control over this situation, they need to be a bigger part. They need to control that instead of the former officers. And I'm asking, I think the county does have an oversight, sheriff's oversight board, or is there one being proposed?
Yeah, there is one being proposed. I think I saw that announcement from the chairman. It's only in the early stages of I just heard the announcement, and that's about it. But there's also the Massey Commission that's being started. I mean, that's another wonderful thing that I think will come out of this, to try to get some leaders together and organizers to put all of our heads together and figure out what happened and how do we fix it going forward. But the community really does need to heal. And I think that what we've seen here is that we've all come together. And this is a textbook example, Frank, of nonviolent community action and action. And
Right.
Look what happened. I mean, it almost gives me chills talking about this, because you didn't see this type of reaction in other places, and it was a little more violent in other places. And look what we did here without violence. And I hope that continues, and I think it will continue until we finally get this right.
I've been at a number of the I've been at a number of the demonstrations myself, and I've been pleased. Of course, I've been involved in some demonstrations that weren't so cordial, and but these were very well run. People came with a purpose and not with an ulterior purpose, and we have gotten the word out because I think we've been the fact that there has been no violence, there has been no provocateurs there that created a situation, and so therefore you can't diminish the groups that came together to protest Sonia Mass's death, and all you can do is listen because they've been prepared, they've come forward, and they've spoken, and then think about it is this has been a community effort. This has not been a black versus white. This has been a community effort, and I think the fact that we have so much diversity in the community that's come together because they recognize, and this is the thing about it is the community finally says we had enough of this, and so I think that's why the Andy Van Meters of the world and I thought Sheriff Campbell put forth a reasonable approach to say he wasn't going to resign, but unfortunately, his credibility was shot. It was just how can you trust him at the point of this guy being on the job with all the red flags there?
Yeah, I mean, what really scared me and what ultimately prompted me to make the announcement for his resignation was his speech and demeanor at the DOJ healing forum. And when there was speaker after speaker talking about how they were not going to call the police anymore,
right,
that they just didn't feel safe. I mean, to me, that was alarming. When people don't trust law enforcement to that degree, that is concerning to me. And I think that showed me that him staying in office was a public safety threat, and that couldn't continue. And I'm fortunate that he listened to the community, and that Chairman Van Meter probably put pressure on him as well to step down and make an early retirement announcement. But it ultimately worked. But still so much work to do to mend this and to get all of these moving parts figured out, ordinances, state laws, the mayor board, all this stuff hashed out to where we have a process that not only works, but is trusted by the county residents.
Well, I don't want to be critical, but why did it take Chairman Van Meter so long to get engaged? I mean, this thing went on for almost 3 weeks before he actually got engaged. And I felt that, and I know Chairman Van Meter, and I felt that was a leadership issue that should have been handled by him. The sheriff tried to get in front of this, but it was something that needs the top of the band, the leader of the band, the leader of the group to come forward and say, this is how we're going to work ourselves through this. And the first thing I'm going to do is ask the sheriff to resign or retire. That to me would have been a signal of how important this was too. And it was almost like, let me see how this is going to blow over before I get engaged.
Yeah, the silence on their part was deafening. And I still find it relatively deafening because it's just still not enough. I mean, and even at the county board hearing, when we had a record number of public speakers, over 3 hours of public, but I mean, this is a record. And that room was filled of hundreds of people. I mean, and it gave, their silence gave the image of that it was just we were being partisan in our calls for his resignation. And every time the sheriff spoke, it was, oh, that's just Mark being Mark. Those are the Democrats being Democrats.
No.
And they're being partisan. And it looked that way because the Republicans didn't say a word. Well, even at the meeting, they didn't say a word.
Well, they have the supermajority, and it's been that way since I was on the county board. I had a little bit better fight of it back in the day, but it's been a supermajority for some time. And this is the thing that I have said to Alderman Gregory and other elected officials and said, is this a moment or is this a movement? Because we have to get more engaged. And it's not a matter of Democrat or Republican, but is this the kind of leadership we want? Is this the kind of where we sit idly by and just let uh, the chairman dictate how this all goes down? Each one of those members of the county board who didn't open their mouth, even if they said, I agree with what he's doing, at least you're an active participant in the process. But to sit there and not take any role in the process, to me, is like why were you elected? Why are you there? If you're going to let the county board chairman say, this is how we do it, and you just swallow it whole.
I'm going to do my best to keep it in movement. I mean, that's what this ultimately needs to be turned into, if not already. I mean, we might be with small in number on the county board, the Democratic caucus, but we're very mighty and we're very vocal. And look what happened as a result of us just speaking up.
Right.
I mean, it's this our voices snowballed, and ultimately even Governor Pritzker and Lieutenant Governor got involved in this. I mean, and it's just so many notable figures rose to the occasion. And that's why I do feel that this will be a movement and not a moment. And I hope I'm not wrong in that. And I think that if enough of us continue this, and I made those remarks during my testimony, were that we should be adding chairs at these meetings, whether it's county board or the jail committee. We need to be adding chairs to those meetings, not taking them away. And as long as the public continues to show up time and time again, month over month, and they don't go away, we're going to get this right. I mean, there's no other choice to get it right. But if they begin easing up and dropping off one by one, and then we have our meetings back in the old building again, the numbers are so small, I fear that it will be back to a moment in time, and that moment is going to pass us by. So it's on us to get this thing right, Frank.
Right. How do we keep people engaged? What do we do to keep people engaged and not let this be a moment? How do we assure that people are going to start registering? Because the sheriff is an elected position. Even if Chair Van Meter had said, well, he had asked Sheriff Campbell to retire or resign, he could have said, no, I'm an elected official just like you, and I'm going to serve my term of office up. I think that would have been a traumatic experience for the county, because I think this thing could have escalated if he'd have taken that approach. How do we make sure that by registering people, making sure they understand the process? And this is the other part that I wanted to sort of bounce off you today. A lot of people didn't understand that this was the county's responsibility and not the city. I was at a couple of public forums where they were calling on the mayor and the alderman. And I said to a couple of the aldermen, you guys need to step forward and make sure and clarify, this is not your responsibility. You don't have a vote on the county board. And that's the part of the educational process I think people need to understand. The difference in autonomy between the county and the city.
Yeah, this has been a pretty big learning experience for those about local politics. And I think a lot of people have always known about city council and the mayor and the horseshoe, but the county board has been a body that's not been so well known. And I'm even guilty of that. And I'm on the county board. And before I ran, I knew very little about the board, never even went to a single meeting. And now look what's happened. I mean, people are contacting their board member. They're finding out when the committees are. They want to know what the committees do, who reports to who, and everyone's caught on very quickly. And that was even evident at the DOJ forum when no one of us was even on the panel.
Right.
We didn't even know that it was us that had responsibility, and that we were missing entirely from that scene. but maybe they just didn't know that, hey, this is our mess and we have to fix it. But I do feel confident now. People are wide awake and they know exactly who their members are, and they've woken up to it. And we just got to keep talking about it, because the more we keep talking about it, the more it's going to catch on, and they're not going to let this go.
I said to a couple of friends of mine, I may start a educational forum, if you want to say, of local politics and how this process works, and maybe I can do this on my podcast and just start breaking down the city and the county and seeing who's elected and what their roles and responsibilities are. Because clearly, it was amazing to me, having been in the game as long as I have, that more people were not aware that the division of separation between the city and county. And I think that's a very easily fixable problem, but somebody's got to take the onus to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, yeah, it's an easy problem to fix, and I do think they are catching on. And I was I was very enlightened, and kind of made me feel warm and fuzzy when people were talking about incumbency and who was up for reelection, and identifying all the races where there's no Democratic challenger.
Right.
I mean, the level of sophistication that it went from non-existent to them knowing who was up and where their districts are and who the challengers. I mean, it's really incredible, the amount of intelligence that is now been gained by the citizens of Sangamon County in this process. And I nerd out over things like that, because the county board is not something that most people even knew existed until this happened. And so, there is, I'm not going to say a positive in this. It's just, it's unfortunate that this is what it took to get to this point. But maybe this is, like you said, the movement, and it's on us once again to make sure that we keep this thing going, and that we don't let off the gas until we get this thing fixed.
Mark, I really appreciate your time, and I've got to make a commercial break right here and notify or dignify my sponsors. I got a couple of sponsors. Sangamon Watch down on 206 South 6th Street. You can go buy a brand new watch, or you can get your watch repaired there. Picture Perfect Studios, which where I am now. Simmons and Shields, my tax accountants, and Boyd's New Generation Restaurant. Those are the sponsors that make sure you get to see me once a week, and look forward to having you back, Mark. And thanks for taking the time to come on Talk of the Town.
Come back anytime. Thanks a lot, Frank.
Thank you.